In the era of eternal night, the sky burned once more. The world had changed. Centuries ago, the sun had vanished behind a shroud of darkness, and what remained was an era of eternal night. Cities that once thrived under golden sunlight now flickered weakly beneath artificial lights, their towers stretching into shadows that never left. The sky, once a canvas of color, had become a black void. Yet whispers persisted, stories of a fire in the heavens that would someday burn again. In the city of Noctis, where the streets were perpetually cold and wet, a young astronomer named Kael scanned the void with his instruments. His fingers trembled over the controls, not from the chill, but from a hope that had survived generations, the hope that the sky could once again shine. Another reading, Kael muttered, adjusting the lenses of his telescope. The data on his screen flickered like dying stars. Impossible, or maybe. His heart raced as he saw the faintest trace of light moving across the darkness, a pulse, a spark, something that defied the endless night. The Council of Elders had long warned against chasing such illusions. The sky is dead, they said. Accept it, or perish in your delusions. But Kael had always been a child of questions, not answers. He couldn't ignore the pull, the feeling that the sky was alive, waiting to burn once more. Kael's closest companion, Myra, a mechanic and engineer, leaned over his shoulder. Her hands were smeared with oil, her face illuminated by the dim glow of the instruments. "Are you sure this isn't a glitch?" she asked, skeptical but secretly hoping for a miracle. Kael shook his head. "No. This is real. Something is coming." Days passed. The faint light grew stronger in Kael's readings, and a pattern emerged, a rhythm, like a heartbeat in the dark. The people of Noctis noticed it too, though most dismissed it as a trick of their eyes. Shadows moved differently, the winds carried a strange warmth, and the distant horizon sometimes glowed faintly, like embers in a fire that had long been extinguished. The elders convened. They debated, argued, and accused. Fear had ruled the city for centuries, and fear had a long memory. But Kael and Myra were undeterred. They gathered their instruments, maps, and notes, and prepared for a journey that would take them beyond the city walls, into lands where darkness had consumed all, and legends whispered of a flame that could reignite the sky. On the night they departed, the city was silent. The eternal night pressed down, thick and suffocating. Yet for the first time in centuries, the horizon glimmered faintly, not with stars, but with a promise. Kael looked at Myra. "This is it," he said. "The sky, it's waking." Myra nodded, adjusting the straps of her pack. "Then we follow it, wherever it leads." The first leg of their journey was treacherous. The lands beyond Noctis were ruins, remnants of civilizations that had collapsed when the sun disappeared. Skyscrapers stood like tombstones, their interiors hollow, echoing the emptiness of a world without light. Wolves, larger and stranger than any they had known, prowled the ruins, hunting the few creatures brave enough to survive in darkness. But Kael and Myra pressed on, guided by the faint pulse of light on the horizon. Each night, it grew brighter, burning like a fire suspended in the void. And as they traveled, Kael realized something terrifying. The light was not just a fire. It was alive. It spoke in warmth, in pulses, in vibrations that seemed to resonate in their very bones. Kael touched his chest. "I can feel it," he whispered. "It's calling us." Myra shivered. Then the legends were true. The sky can burn again. They did not know that their journey had already been noticed. From the shadows of the ruined cities, creatures older than memory watched them. Eyes glimmered, reflecting the faint light of the approaching flame. Not all welcomed it. Some feared it. Some hungered for it. And far above, beyond the clouds of eternal night, the sky stirred. The path ahead was a labyrinth of crumbling cities and jagged ruins. Kael and Myra moved cautiously, their boots crunching against shattered concrete and rusted metal. The pulse of light on the horizon guided them, a heartbeat in the eternal night, growing stronger with each step. "This way," Kael said, pointing toward a narrow ravine that seemed to slice through the ruins like a wound. The light shimmered faintly from beyond it, as if urging them forward. Myra followed, her hands steady on the straps of her pack, though her mind raced with unspoken questions. The ravine was a trap of shadows. Twisting pathways, collapsed walls, and hidden sinkholes forced them to move slowly. Every step echoed in the darkness, a reminder that they were not alone. Strange whispers rode the wind, unintelligible yet filled with intent, making their skin prickle. Do you hear that? Myra asked, pausing. Her voice was a whisper, almost lost to the wind.
Kael nodded.
Voices, but not human. The light, it's drawing them too. As they progressed, a figure emerged from the shadows, a wolf-like creature, but far larger than any natural animal. Its fur shimmered black as coal, and its eyes glowed with a strange, fiery hue. It prowled closer, muscles rippling under the faint light of the pulse in the distance. Kael froze.
Stay calm.
Don't show fear. Myra's hand brushed against the hilt of a makeshift weapon, but Kael raised a hand to stop her. Watch. The creature sniffed the air, tilting its massive head toward the glowing pulse. Instead of attacking, it let out a low, resonant growl, then turned and padded silently toward the light.
Kael's eyes widened.
It's following it. Myra exhaled slowly, tension leaving her shoulders. So, we're not the only ones drawn to it. Night after night, they followed the pulse, and with each passing day, the light revealed more secrets.
Entire landscapes long thought dead began to shimmer faintly.
Rivers of liquid silver flowed through the ruins, and strange vegetation, luminous and ethereal, pushed through cracks in concrete and metal. On the fourth night, they came to a vast chasm, its depths swallowed by darkness. From below, a strange sound rose, a low hum, resonating with the pulse above. Kael stepped closer, peering into the abyss. The light, they realized, was not just above the world. It came from deep within it. We have to go down, Kael said, voice trembling. It's not just in the sky. It's alive in the world too. Myra frowned, hesitant. Into the darkness?
We barely know what's down there. Kael grabbed her hand.
We have to. If the sky burns again, it starts here. Using ropes, old ladders, and careful footing, they descended into the chasm. The further they went, the warmer the air became. Shadows twisted unnaturally around them, forming shapes that seemed almost alive, watching, waiting. Finally, they reached a cavern illuminated by the pulse, a vast underground chamber filled with crystals that radiated light, each pulse like the beat of a giant heart. The air shimmered with heat and energy, and the ground vibrated beneath their feet. Kael approached the nearest crystal, awestruck. It's beautiful. Myra touched one too.
A jolt of warmth ran through her veins. It's alive, somehow. Like it knows we're here.
Then came a voice, not spoken, but felt in their minds, deep and resonant. You are the Seekers.
The night has ruled too long.
The sky must burn once more, and only you can guide it. Kael and Myra exchanged glances, shock and awe reflected in their eyes. They had expected wonders, challenges, perhaps danger, but not this. Not a voice from the very heart of the world, calling them by name. We have to trust it, Kael whispered. It's choosing us.
Myra nodded slowly.
Then let's see this through. Whatever it wants, whatever it takes.
But their presence had not gone unnoticed.
From the shadows of the cavern, eyes glimmered. Creatures, twisted and ancient, stirred.
Some fearful, some hostile. Not all would welcome the returning light.
And above them, in the eternal night, the first spark of the burning sky began to flare, faintly at first, but unstoppable. The cavern pulsed with light, the crystals throbbing like the heartbeat of a world long forgotten. Kael and Myra stood in awe, feeling the energy hum through the ground, vibrating in rhythm with their own pulses. The voice from the heart of the cavern had spoken once, but its echo lingered, wrapping around their minds like a warm embrace. We need to understand it, Kael said, moving closer to a cluster of crystals. If the sky is going to burn again, we have to know what we're dealing with. Myra knelt, brushing dust from the floor.
It's alive. But not like any life we've known.
It's conscious, aware of us. Maybe it can guide us. As they explored, the cavern began to shift. Crystals rotated, beams of light danced along the walls, and shadows stretched into shapes that seemed to observe them, following their every movement. A low hum grew louder, resonating with their chest, their thoughts, their fears. Suddenly, one of the shadows detached itself from the walls. It took the form of a humanoid figure, cloaked in darkness, eyes glowing faintly. Its voice was like gravel and flame. Who dares awaken the heart of night? Kael stepped forward, unafraid.
We mean no harm. We seek to restore the sky.
To bring fire to the darkness.
The figure tilted its head. Many have tried. All have failed.
The sky cannot be burned by mortal hands.
Myra spoke, her voice steady. We're not mortals.
We're seekers. The light called us. The shadow paused, then slowly gestured toward the largest crystal at the center of the chamber. Its glow intensified, bathing the cavern in a fiery light that made the shadows quiver.
Then prove it.
Touch the heart, and show that you are worthy. Kael and Myra exchanged a glance.
The crystal's surface shimmered like liquid fire.
Kael placed his hand against it, feeling heat that was neither painful nor gentle, a force beyond understanding. Myra followed, and as her fingers met the crystal, visions filled their minds. They saw worlds consumed by darkness, civilizations lost to fear, and skies that had once burned bright. They saw creatures of shadow, some allies, some enemies, all watching and waiting for the light to return. And at the center of it all, a single star, a blazing fire that pulsed with life, ready to return.
We can do this, Kael whispered, almost in awe.
We have to guide it, but how? The crystal pulsed in answer, a rhythm that resonated with the very essence of their beings.
It was a language of light and heat, a pattern they felt more than heard.
Slowly, they realized that they could influence it, not with machines, not with weapons, but with intention, with belief, with courage. But as the realization dawned, the cavern shook violently. From the shadows, creatures emerged, twisted forms with eyes like molten metal. They hissed, lunged, and circled, drawn to the energy. Not all the beings of the eternal night wished for the sky to burn again. Myra drew a weapon, a jagged blade they had scavenged from the ruins above. Kael held his hands above the crystal, letting the energy course through him. Light flared from the crystal, forming a barrier between them and the advancing shadows.
"This is it," Kael shouted, voice trembling.
"We hold it together, or the night wins forever." The creatures attacked, shadows clashing against waves of searing light. Myra moved with precision, striking those that tried to breach their defenses, while Kael channeled the crystal's energy, forming beams of fire that pushed the darkness back. Hours seemed to pass, though time felt meaningless in the pulsing chamber. The battle was not just physical, it was mental, spiritual. The light demanded focus, faith, and unity. The darkness tested their fears, their doubts, their weaknesses. And finally, with a surge of energy, the crystal's light exploded outward, filling the cavern and spilling into the skies above. The pulse that had guided them flared into a blaze, visible even through the eternal night, burning like a star reborn. Kael and Myra collapsed to the ground, exhausted but alive. Through the cavern's ceiling, they could see the first flickers of light in the sky, a glow that stretched across the horizon, faint yet undeniable. "It's happening," Myra whispered, tears streaking her face. "The sky, it's burning again." Kael nodded, staring upward.
"We've only begun."
"The sky will not stop here, it will spread, and the world will remember light once more." Above them, the shadows retreated, wary of the returning fire. Some vanished into the depths, others watched silently, understanding that the age of darkness was ending. The journey was far from over. The sky had awakened, but the eternal night had left scars, and new challenges awaited. Kael and Myra had become the bearers of hope, the guides for a world that had forgotten what light felt like. Yet even as the first streaks of dawn, new dawn, flickered across the horizon, the crystal pulsed, reminding them. The sky burned once more, but it required guardians. And in the era of eternal night, the guardians had only just begun. The first light was fragile, a thin veil over a world long shrouded in shadow. Kael and Myra emerged from the cavern, blinking against the glow that now bathed the ruins. It wasn't dawn, not yet, but it was a promise, a pulse of fire stretching across the eternal night. The ruins of Noctis looked different under the glow. Shadows that had seemed permanent now shivered and retreated. Broken streets glimmered faintly as the light touched them, and the ruins seemed alive, as if the pulse had awakened the memory of what the world once was. "Look at it," Myra said, awe in her voice. "The city, it's breathing again." Kael nodded, but his eyes were on the horizon.
"It's not just the city.
The sky, the light is spreading. But it's uneven.
Some places resist.
Some fight it." From the far edge of the city, they saw figures moving in the shadows. Larger than humans, cloaked in darkness, their forms shifting like smoke. They watched, silent but full of intent, as if the pulse threatened their very existence. We're not the only ones noticing it, Kael murmured. They're guardians of the night. Not all welcome this change. Myra tightened her grip on her tools. Then we need to be ready. If the light is to spread, we can't wait for it to protect itself. The following days were a blur of movement. Kael and Myra traveled, guiding the pulse's energy, learning to channel it through crystals, through ruins, through the very earth itself. With every effort, the light strengthened, stretching further into lands that had not seen brightness for centuries. Yet with progress came resistance. The shadows grew bolder, striking from hidden places, testing their limits. Each encounter was a battle of will as much as force. The pulse could repel the darkness, but it needed guidance, and Kael and Myra became conduits for its energy, risking themselves to protect the fragile glow. One night, as they camped on the roof of a shattered tower, the sky above burned brighter than ever before, painting the clouds in fiery streaks. Kael gazed upward, his face illuminated in orange-red hues. "It's beautiful," Myra said softly, "but it's overwhelming. Like the sky itself is alive, and it doesn't belong to anyone yet."
Kael nodded. "It's not ours.
It's older than us. It's something the world forgot how to see. We're just helping it remember."
A distant rumble interrupted their thoughts.
The ground trembled beneath them, and a fissure cracked the street below, revealing a cavernous opening filled with darkness. From within, the shadows surged, larger and more organized than ever before. "They are gathering," Kael said, unease heavy in his voice. "They are planning to push back."
Myra's eyes narrowed.
"Then we show them that light isn't just a weapon. It's hope." Over the next week, Kael and Myra worked tirelessly, connecting crystals, channeling energy, and mapping the spread of the pulse. Slowly, pockets of resistance fell away as the light touched them, not by force alone, but by awakening what life remained within the ruins, the faint stirrings of plants, the timid return of animals, even the echoes of humanity in scattered survivors.
But the guardians of the night were patient. They retreated when challenged but never vanished.
Kael realized that this struggle was not about victory or defeat.
It was about balance.
The pulse could spread, but it needed careful guidance, or it could burn too brightly, consuming the fragile remnants of the world. One evening, Myra turned to him, her eyes reflecting the burning horizon. "Kael, do you think the sky will ever be the same again?" He studied the light, stretching farther than ever before.
"No. Not the same. Better. Brighter.
A sky that remembers both darkness and fire." As they prepared to move further into the wildlands, the pulse pulsed stronger, almost as if it sensed the coming journey. The road ahead would be longer, filled with new creatures, challenges, and mysteries. But for the first time in centuries, the world had hope. Above them, the eternal night was breaking, streaks of fire tearing through the void, announcing a new era. And somewhere beyond the horizon, deeper shadows stirred, preparing for the inevitable confrontation with the light.
Kael gripped Myra's hand.
"No matter what comes, we keep guiding it. The sky burned once before, and it can burn again. But it needs us to help it, to teach it, and protect it."
Myra nodded.
"Then let's not waste time. The world is waiting." And with that, they set off into the unknown, the pulse glowing brighter with every step, the eternal night giving way to the fire that had slept too long. The pulse had grown stronger, stretching across valleys and mountains, touching forests and rivers that had long been swallowed by darkness. Kael and Myra led the way, moving faster now, more confident in their connection with the living fire. Each step they took carried the rhythm of the pulse, as if the world itself was guiding them. Yet, with the spread of light came new challenges. The guardians of night no longer lurked in isolation. They formed coordinated attacks, ambushing the travelers, trying to disrupt the flow of energy. Shadows twisted into enormous beasts, claws of darkness scraping against stones and metal, but Kael and Myra had grown in skill. Together, they could channel the pulse into beams and waves, pushing back the creatures with precision and strength. During one of these encounters, a new presence appeared, an unexpected ally. A figure, human yet unlike any they had seen before, emerged from the ruins of an ancient city. Her hair shimmered like silver threads, her eyes reflecting the glow of the pulse. "I've been waiting for you," she said calmly, voice clear and strong. "The light calls, and only those who understand it can guide it. I am Solara, a keeper of the old ways. I can help." Kael and Myra exchanged glances. "The old ways?" Myra asked,
cautious but intrigued. Solara smiled faintly.
Before the sun vanished, there were those who could speak with the pulse of the world. We preserved knowledge, waiting for someone brave enough to awaken the sky again.
That someone is you.
With Solara's guidance, they learned to refine their control over the pulse. It was no longer just a force they followed. They could influence it, extend its reach, and even weave it into protective shields or channels of energy. The spread of light became faster, more precise, illuminating pockets of civilization that had survived the darkness and awakening life that had long been dormant. Yet, the Guardians of Night were relentless. They adapted, forming massive, coordinated assaults, forcing Kael, Myra, and Solara to confront their own fears and weaknesses. One night, as they camped near a canyon of blackened stone, a swarm of shadow creatures descended from above, their forms twisting and growing larger as they merged into a single monstrous entity. "We can't let it reach the valley," Kael shouted, feeling the pulse vibrate urgently beneath him. Solara extended her hands, drawing the pulse into a massive wave of light that surged across the canyon floor. Myra moved alongside her, guiding the energy, shaping it into barriers and paths that forced the creature back. The clash of darkness and light shook the ground, leaving cracks and fissures across the landscape. Finally, with a concerted effort, the monster dissolved into shadows, retreating into the far reaches of the night. The valley was bathed in a golden glow, the pulse now brighter than ever before. Breathing heavily, Myra looked around. "We're making a difference," she said, almost in disbelief. "The world, it's waking up." Kael nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. "But the Guardians will not give up. They'll strike harder, find new ways to resist. The pulse may be alive, but it still needs us to protect it." Solara placed a hand on Kael's shoulder. "Then we continue. The world is ready for light again, but only if we are brave enough to guide it through the darkness."
And so, they pressed onward.
Across barren plains, through ruined cities, and into forests where the pulse stirred life anew, the three travelers became the bearers of hope. Each day, the sky burned brighter, spreading fire and warmth across lands that had known only cold shadows for centuries. Above, the eternal night was breaking, not entirely gone but forced back, retreating as the pulse claimed more of the world. And in the deepest corners of shadow, the Guardians whispered, plotting, waiting for the moment when they could challenge the light once more. Kael, Myra, and Solara walked forward together, the pulse singing in their minds, a reminder that the sky burned not just above them, but within them, and that the era of eternal night was finally giving way to the fire of rebirth. The pulse had grown into a force impossible to ignore. Across mountains, forests, and plains, light spread like rivers of fire, rekindling the world in ways no one had imagined.
Cities that had long been abandoned now stirred with life.
Trees, flowers, and rivers began to respond to the pulse, and scattered survivors emerged from hiding, drawn to the warmth.
But the Guardians of Night were not finished.
Far beyond the reach of the pulse, in the deepest shadows where light had never touched, they gathered. Thousands of them, ancient and cunning, merged into a colossal form, a being of darkness that seemed to swallow even the faintest glow around it. Its voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You dare awaken what was never meant to burn? The sky belongs to night alone." Kael felt the pulse thrumming violently beneath his feet. "It's massive, stronger than anything we've faced," he said, his voice tense. Solara stepped forward, her silver hair reflecting the glow of the pulse.
"Then we must become one with it.
Only by uniting our strength can we hope to guide it against such darkness." Myra nodded, gripping her weapons tightly.
"We've come this far. We can't stop now."
The three of them reached the edge of a vast canyon, the heart of the Guardian's power. From the shadows, tendrils of darkness surged upward, twisting into monstrous forms. Every creature they had faced before seemed small in comparison. The pulse flared, responding to their fear, their courage, their resolve. Kael extended his hands over the crystal they carried, feeling it resonate with the pulse of the world. Solara joined him, and Myra followed, their energies intertwining. The pulse grew, forming a protective dome of light around them, pushing back the shadows as far as they could. "We must strike at its heart," Solara said, her voice steady. "The Guardians feed on fear. If we weaken them, the pulse can reclaim the sky."
Kael inhaled, focusing. "Then let's do it.
Together."
The battle began.
Shadows surged in waves, trying to breach the dome, but the pulse formed barriers, shields of radiant fire that forced the darkness to retreat. Myra moved alongside Kael and Solara, channeling energy into beams of light that pierced the Guardian's forms, scattering them like smoke. But the colossal Guardian was patient. It waited, biding its time, feeding on the remnants of fear within Kael and Myra. The dome shook violently as it struck with tendrils of darkness, each blow testing their resolve, threatening to shatter their connection with the pulse. Kael's chest burned, his vision blurred.
I can't hold it alone," he shouted.
Solara placed a hand on his shoulder.
"You are not alone. None of us are.
Feel the pulse. It is stronger than fear. It lives in every part of the world we've touched, and it flows through us.
Trust it."
Myra closed her eyes, letting the pulse guide her hands. She could feel the rhythm, the heartbeat of the world. And with it, she wove streams of light into the dome, reinforcing its walls and pushing back the darkness. The Guardian shrieked, a sound that shook the very ground, but the combined force of Kael, Myra, and Solara pushed it to its knees. The pulse flared outward, illuminating the canyon, the mountains, and the distant lands beyond. Kael stepped forward, energy flowing through him, and touched the heart of the pulse directly. Fire exploded from the crystal, cascading through the darkness, purging the shadows, and illuminating the sky above in brilliant streaks of crimson, gold, and white. The colossal Guardian roared one final time, then dissolved into shadows, leaving behind only silence. The pulse continued to burn, but now it was steady, controlled, guided by the hands of those who had awakened it. Kael fell to his knees, breathing heavily, his hands still glowing with the remnants of energy. Myra knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder.
"We did it," she whispered.
Solara looked up at the sky, her eyes shining.
"No. The world did it. We were only the guides."
"The pulse is alive in every living thing now. It will burn, and the light will spread, even without us." Above them, the eternal night began to crumble. Streaks of light tore across the horizon, illuminating mountains, forests, and seas. Cities that had been silent for centuries awoke in warmth and color. Life, long dormant, began to reclaim the world. Kael looked at Myra and Solara, a mixture of exhaustion and awe on his face. "The sky, it's burning once more."
Solara smiled. "And it will keep burning.
As long as there are those who remember light, the sky will never fall to darkness again." Myra gazed at the horizon. "Then our job isn't over. The Guardians may return, but now we know, we can face them. Together." And with that, the three travelers stood on the edge of the canyon, watching the pulse illuminate the world. For the first time in centuries, the era of eternal night felt like a memory. Fading beneath the fire of a sky reborn, the world breathed again. Mountains, forests, and rivers shimmered with renewed life as the pulse spread its warmth across every corner of the earth. Villages long abandoned stirred with cautious movement. People emerged from hiding, blinking at the glow that bathed the land, unsure whether to trust the returning light. Kael, Myra, and Solara traveled through the revitalized world, guiding the pulse, teaching survivors how to channel its energy. Small communities began to rebuild, inspired by the first signs of dawn that streaked across the horizon. The pulse wasn't just light, it was life, hope, and memory, awakening the earth itself. "We've done more than awaken the sky," Myra said as they walked through a field where flowers glowed softly. "We've reminded the world that life still matters." Kael nodded, his gaze toward the burning sky. "But the Guardians of Night will not vanish forever.
Their shadows linger, watching.
Waiting for weakness." Solara touched his shoulder. "And they will find none, if we continue to guide the pulse. It has grown strong, and so have we. The light now lives in the world, not just in us." Their journey took them to the edges of lands untouched by civilization, where the pulse had only just reached. In these wild lands, the Guardians of Night still held sway, forming dense, creeping shadows that twisted around the trees and rocks. Here, the pulse burned but faltered, struggling against the resistance. A low rumble echoed through the forest, and massive forms emerged from the darkness, creatures formed entirely of shadow, with eyes like molten gold. They were remnants of the Guardians, testing the strength of the pulse in its new form. Kael stepped forward, raising his hands, letting the pulse flow through him. The light surged, weaving between the trees, forming protective paths and glowing bridges through the darkness. Myra guided the energy alongside him, shaping beams and walls that forced the shadow creatures back. Solara closed her eyes, her mind connected to the pulse across the lands. "Focus on the rhythm," she whispered.
"Feel its heartbeat."
The guardians cannot withstand unity. Working as one, the three channeled the pulse with precision. Shadows shrieked, lunging and retreating, but each strike of light weakened them further. Gradually, the creatures disintegrated, leaving only whispers that faded into the wind. Exhausted, Kael fell to his knees.
Myra placed a hand on his shoulder.
"We're doing it," she said softly. "Every step we take, every pulse we guide, it changes the world." Solara smiled, watching the horizon where light touched even the distant mountains. The pulse is no longer just a weapon or a shield. It is a teacher. It shows life how to fight the darkness within itself, as well as the darkness around it. As days turned into weeks, villagers learned to channel the pulse themselves. People who had lived in fear of shadows now cultivated glowing fields, lit their homes with light that came from the pulse, and spread warmth and hope into lands that had been forgotten. But the guardians of night were patient.
They did not vanish entirely.
In faraway lands, whispers of shadow still stirred, biding time, learning from their defeats. Kael knew that one day they would return, but this time, humanity would be ready. One evening, as the three travelers watched the sky ablaze with fire, Kael spoke quietly. "The sky burned once before, then darkness claimed it. Now it burns again, but the world is different. We're different." Myra rested her head against his shoulder. "Then the future isn't in doubt anymore. The light is ours to protect." Solara's gaze remained on the horizon.
"Not ours alone. The pulse belongs to the world.
And now, it lives in everyone who chooses hope over fear." Above them, the sky pulsed like a heartbeat, streaks of crimson, gold, and white illuminating the land. The era of eternal night had ended, but the memory of darkness lingered, a reminder that light must always be guided, nurtured, and defended. Kael stood, looking at the glowing horizon. "We've begun something greater than ourselves. The world will remember this day, and it will remember that even in the darkest night, the sky can burn once more." Myra and Solara joined him, and together they watched as the pulse spread across distant lands, touching every shadow, every corner, every life. The guardians of night had been defeated, but the vigilance of light had only just begun. And in the skies above, the fire of rebirth continued to blaze, an eternal reminder that even after centuries of darkness, hope could rise, and the world could burn bright once more. The world had changed forever. Rivers shimmered like molten silver, forests glowed with ethereal light, and cities once abandoned now thrummed with life. The pulse had spread beyond anything Kael, Myra, or Solara could have imagined, touching hearts, minds, and lands that had slept in darkness for centuries. From the highest peaks to the deepest valleys, the light of the pulse shone, a constant reminder that the era of eternal night had ended. Yet, for those who had lived through the darkness, the memory of shadow lingered, a silent caution that the guardians of night could rise again. Kael stood atop a hill overlooking a valley illuminated by the pulse, Myra at his side, Solara a few steps ahead. Children played in glowing fields, villagers worked together to cultivate new life, and creatures long thought extinct returned to the land. The pulse had become more than energy, it had become hope itself. "It's beautiful," Myra said softly, tears glinting in her eyes. "The world, it's alive again."
Kael nodded.
"And it's just the beginning. The pulse will continue to guide life, but we have to teach people to listen to it, to protect it. Darkness may never fully disappear, but light can always fight back." Solara turned, her silver hair shimmering in the glow. "We were chosen to awaken it, to guide it, but the pulse now belongs to the world. Every person who embraces hope becomes a guardian. The sky burns because the world remembers how to care for it." As they moved through the valley, they saw the remnants of the last shadows being cleansed by the pulse. Not all shadows were malevolent, some were simply remnants of fear, old memories, or grief, but the pulse transformed them into lessons, allowing life to reclaim its balance. Kael felt a surge of warmth as he reached out to touch the air, the pulse flowing through him and connecting him to the land, the sky, and every living thing around him. Myra did the same, and Solara closed her eyes, her mind extending across the world, ensuring that the pulse would reach even the most hidden corners. "It's incredible," Myra whispered. "We can feel it, everywhere."
Kael smiled.
"It's alive, and it will keep living. We were the spark, but the fire belongs to everyone now." As the trio walked through the glowing fields, they noticed distant mountains streaked with crimson and gold, rivers that shimmered under the new light, and skies filled with streaks of fire that no shadow could resist. The pulse had become a symphony of life and light, a reminder that even after centuries of darkness, the world could rise again. The guardians of night had not vanished entirely, but they no longer ruled. Some watched from the distance, silent and thoughtful, learning that the pulse was not their enemy but a force that required respect. Others melted back into the land, transformed by the light into forms of balance, no longer twisted by endless night. Kael looked at Myra and Solara. We've done more than awaken the sky. We've reminded the world what it means to hope, to fight, to survive.
Myra nodded. And the world will carry this forward.
The pulse will keep burning, even when we are gone. Solara smiled, her eyes reflecting the brilliant horizon.
Then our task is complete.
We've guided the fire, and now it guides itself. The era of eternal night is over. The sky burns once more, and the world remembers light. Above them, the heavens glowed in brilliant streaks of crimson, gold, and white. The pulse continued to beat, steady and eternal, a reminder that darkness may always exist, but it can never dominate the hearts and minds of those who embrace the fire of hope. Kael, Myra, and Solara stood together, watching the sky blaze with life. For the first time in centuries, the world felt whole, alive, and unafraid.
The era of eternal night had ended. The pulse had awakened.
And the sky burned once more. And in that light, the world remembered itself.